a restaurant into the ground often stems from a combination of poor financial management, lack of operational systems, and high staff turnover.
Listen, it has nothing to do.
That sounds about right. Yeah. I mean,
Okay. Well, I don't believe that. I mean, why do you think? I mean, I do think that there's so many contributing things, man.
Right.
I mean, that's just like the tip of the iceberg. Did you know the Family Express guy? Did you know that he had purchased? I think he had tried and failed on 3 different gas stations. I believe it was 3. Don't quote me on that, but I'll say it live. On 3 different gas stations before he started the Family Express, and it actually worked out for him.
I wonder how he came up with Family Express. Because it's really more of a convenience store, isn't it? I mean, they probably make some money on gas.
I think it's a convenience store that sells gas.
Yeah, it really is. It's interesting.
Yeah.
They make a lot of money on donuts, don't they? Didn't we hear one time that they do
a lot of money
pretty
on
crazy
donuts,
amount just on donuts?
That's what I
do they have like
really
a central location where they make the donuts?
Mm-hmm. It's in Valpo.
And then they just deliver them to the stores every day?
All of their food.
They've got gas stations. He's got like hundreds of gas stations, doesn't he?
Well, except for like the... I don't know how many he has. I'd be interested to know. Probably pull it up. I should have brought my... I need to start bringing my laptop here.
You really should.
And we could both be looking up contradicting evidence at the same time.
Right. You never know.
No. But back to the restaurant thing. I think the biggest thing that caused...
Well, let's talk. Let's. You had a little stint with the restaurant business.
Yeah.
How did it get started? Whose idea was it to get into it originally?
It was mine.
Was it yours?
Yeah.
And how
I like the idea of a simple sandwich shop concept.
Well, because I remember originally when you guys were talking about it, I remember sitting in the kitchen. We were all sitting there, and we were testing different meats, right? Different burgers for a hamburger restaurant, weren't we?
No, there was a time that we wanted to...
it was going to be hamburgers and milkshakes.
Well, there was a time that I wanted to change because the restaurant wasn't working out. The sandwich shop wasn't. You know, it was with a franchise, and the people didn't like, the food, which, to be fair, the food was kind of garbage. It
was okay.
But from when I bought into it to what ended up happening, they changed the food sources. They're the produce providers. And so it was a major impact on the quality of the food. It was okay.
What was your draw to the restaurant originally? It just seemed like
no,
was
there was an obvious draw. Yeah, it was low royalties. It was explosive growth that they were having at the time.
Yeah.
At the time when I bought into it, they were just exploding throughout the United States.
Mm-hmm.
They were already super established in Canada, but at that time, the United States was having major growth.
But you decided right away that you wanted to do a franchise.
I wanted to do a franchise because I had no prior restaurant experience.
And when you got in there talking to the franchise, they said this is going to be the latest and greatest. This is
pretty much.
This is the bee's knees.
Yeah, they pretty much. I had reached out to several different franchises at that point. And when I say several, maybe like, I don't know, 10. There was also some that my idea of doing the franchise in the beginning was I wanted to open up a really small sandwich shop, something that was pretty cheap to get into. I didn't want it to be...
Why not go with like Subway or Jimmy John's?
Because...
You just want to be different.
I wanted to be different. Yeah, there has to be something different. Is
right.
What I was kind of thinking. And not that the different was bad, but the different ended up costing me in the end. If I would have went with like a Subway, they would have told me you're not going to do what I wanted. What we all with the standalone restaurant, they would have said no, it's a bad move. Don't do it.
They don't really have very many standalone Subways, really.
No, it's really rare.
If any.
Unless you're getting the building for real cheap, kind of like auction situation. I mean, there's no reason to do it. So like a Taco Bell can, or something like that. That can actually hold its place. But
so when you got in, you guys got the place opened up.
Yeah.
There's
training.
Yeah.
I had to...
Tell a little bit about the training. What did the franchise do training-wise for you? What was their kind of onboarding process?
Sure. So after I made the initial inquiry to them, then there was a online kind of interview between them and us. They wanted to pitch the idea of, you're not just interviewing us, we're interviewing you too. We don't know if we want to take you on, as a franchisee.
Right.
Or would it be franchisor, right?
Franchisee.
Yeah, franchisee, they're the franchisor. So we did that, and it went just fine. It went well. And enough to where, they gave us bits of information. When you're thinking about all the questions that you would ask a franchise, right? You'd want to know what the average costs are, what the average, gross revenues or gross sales or food costs is, or labor costs, or, you want to know averages around.
Right.
Because that's what's going to, obviously, those are your goals that you're going for.
Give you some projections, right?
Give you some idea, where you'll be. And so they did. And I think they were pretty honest for the most part about what they were saying. But if you stretch the truth a little bit in each area,
it adds up, I'm sure.
It adds up quickly for restaurants.
Here and there, yeah.
Yeah, because restaurants are notorious for, saving pennies everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere.
So, did you do some training?
Yeah.
Did you go to one of the restaurants or something?
Yeah, so their training consisted of, it was out in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Yeah, and I went out there.
Went and worked in one of the restaurants, so they got some free labor from you.
Yeah, well, I kind of did. Yeah, I went out there with Jeremiah, Dolphin, and because he was gonna stay, and he did, to help me open up the restaurant. So that was the only person. And Jeremiah at the time, he had all that experience when he was younger working at Long John Silver's.
Yeah. I forgot that.
Yeah, he did that. I mean, he did that all through high school.
Wow.
So he had a little bit of experience in the food industry, I guess.
Hush puppies, man. I haven't had one of those in a long time.
Yeah. And so we went out there, and I believe it was for, I want to say the training was like 8 days. I think it might have been. And there was different sections of the training. They had broken it down. I wish I had my computer because I could still show you kind of how they broke it down. Some of the stuff I probably shouldn't even talk about because I had to, that's their...
Yeah, but I mean, it's probably pretty similar with every franchise.
It is. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to, there's a classroom setting where they're going to tell you, the business side of it, where your projections should be, or what your food costs should be, who you're ordering from, doing
Did they control
inventory.
all the food sourcing? Like you had to order from certain places for the most part?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah,
they tell you exactly, where to... for the most part. They had a little bit of flexibility as far as, some of the greens and stuff that you use. But as far as, like, the meats and the major...
Was it actually cheaper than, like, going to the grocery store?
No, it was more. In fact,
the meat that you bought from them was more expensive than going to the grocery store?
Which is super unfortunate.
What would they say when you would say something like that to them? How is that even... Like, you're putting us at a disadvantage here right off the bat.
Yeah.
They just think, I mean, this is what it is.
This is our priority. It's their blend. They're like, this is what makes us successful. So either you're on board with us or you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty easy for them to be.
But I remember when you guys opened the restaurant, they had some people come out and open it with you, right? Some from the franchise.
Yeah, they said they were going to be out there for 2 weeks with us, and I think they spent 2 days with us.
Yeah.
That was really disappointing.
And they said, "All right, here you go. Good luck."
Yeah.
What was
I had rolled probably a total of 5 pitas before not before we opened, because then we did do, I think it was 1 or 2 days of pre-opening.
Right.
I had to train, and they told me you need to hire about 6 members. Well,
way underestimated, probably.
I ended up having 30 something employees, like, that I needed to hire the next day. I seen it was like a major shortage, of employees. And even the staff that came out, there's 2 people that came out, and even they were like, you need to hire right now. You know, you get on
Yeah.
get online, get on the phone. You need to be hiring right now. You need way
Yeah.
more people. After we opened up, and then they
Right. Because the first week was slammed every
It-
day there.
it wasn't the first week, man. It was the first 6 months,
Yeah.
which really hurt me because I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah. Let's talk about that here in a second. But so, right when you got open, what was the biggest surprising thing, or like, you know, was there something that you did not expect to be the case? Like, what was something that was shocking about opening the restaurant that you wouldn't have that you didn't expect otherwise? Like, oh, I mean,
Operation side of it.
yeah, like operationally, like running the restaurant. Like, was there something you're like, oh, I did not expect, like this is going to be the case?
Yeah, not really so much. No, I mean, not that I predicted everything to be as it was,
Right.
but I didn't. I don't think there was anything that threw me for a major loop.
Right.
Well, I take that back. The food, that was inventory. You know, being able to keep up with inventory, that was and then shortage supplies, and then being able to how to work that with your customers. Like, oh, we don't have that on the menu. Oh, we don't have this. We don't have that.
Right.
I didn't expect that. You know, I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, I mean, like when you first, like your first week open, you're just like, all right, we're just gonna order, 20 of everything, and hopefully
We were super busy, and then
that works.
yeah, no, that's really what it was
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And we ran out of everything.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, I'm missing the boat here.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. You know, we ran out of so much stuff. I mean, so even in the very beginning, I was going to Costco and, you know,
Right,
buying
sure.
products and having people, family members and stuff while I'm in the restaurant out constantly. I mean, for the first 6 months, really, I think whoever I had, you know, family wise, really helped out doing that. I think that's
Takes a village,
it takes a village. Yeah, it
Right,
takes
right.
a lot of people to help open up a restaurant,
especially
especially
brand new. You don't have a manager. You are the manager in there. You can't just leave the restaurant. I mean, you're kind of glued to that place while the hours are open, right?
I was surely glued. I was doing well over 100-hour work weeks there.
Yeah, that's
You know,
insane.
in the beginning, I would show up at 6 a.m. I would leave at 2 or 3. I mean, dude, there was just no sleep.
Yeah.
There was just no sleep. I mean, there really was. I would sit there. I'd go back to the office to do stuff in the office during down times, and I'd fall asleep.
So you guys were super busy. You said like the first 6 months. Did you think during that time period, like, oh, this is really good? Obviously, you know, money's coming in, that's good, but did you kind of, I mean, because I've heard you say before that being so busy, it, hindered your ability to be able to provide good service and products to the customers. You were having a lot of negative feedback from customers.
A lot of
always
negative
battling the Yelp reviews, the
Yeah.
Google reviews and things like that, and that kind of hurts the
It does hurt.
reputation
It
a little
hurts it
bit, or
bad, yeah.
once somebody like some people go to a restaurant or go to a fast food place or whatever, and they have one bad experience, and then they don't go back. I feel like
Yeah, but here's the thing with that.
somewhat bad experience. I like to think that sometimes, I mean, I guess I'm probably guilty of the same thing, but sometimes I try to give a place another chance, especially if I've been there before.
Well, that's
you
it
know.
right there. You hit the nail on the head there. So, what they say, is that if you have the first 3 times that a customer comes into your establishment, if they have a bad experience, they'll never be back.
Yeah.
Literally never. But if you nail it the first 3 times and then thereafter they have an occasional or one-off bad experience, they'll still come back.
Yeah.
But you have to build a reoccurring customer, and with a in the very beginning, the first impression is everything. And if you don't build that, they're not going to come back.
Right.
And I can remember, there was multiple things where I missed I missed it. People were coming into Pita Pit thinking that they were gonna get in, get out. 5-minute, 10-minute. People would wait 45 minutes for a pita. Dude.
Yeah, at a fast food
That is
place, you just
absolutely
you can't do
ridiculous.
it.
You cannot do that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even about. It was I just had no idea. I mean, over time, my speed got a lot better,
All right.
but that still didn't fix the problem of the taste. And they changed the meat, man.
Yeah.
And look at, I mean,
I
they
remember
can
it
say
being
whatever they
pretty good.
want, but they've had closing down of pitas like
crazy.
all over. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, dude, they went
terrible.
way down in their numbers. So
Yeah.
I wasn't the only problem here.
Right.
You know,
And double whammy, you guys. What? I mean, it was right around COVID
COVID was
Time.
the nail in the coffin. Yeah.
because you opened it up in like 17, 18 or something like that.
Yeah, sometime around there. Yeah.
COVID came in like 2020, 2021.
Yeah. Yep.
So many restaurants have closed down.
Well, I had started the food truck. At that point.
Oh yeah, was that before that was after the restaurant opened, right? Because you had
Yeah.
already had it open.
Yeah, in fact, I did the food truck originally. My idea was to do a different concept. I wanted to get away from Pita Pit, and I wanted to do, a burgers and shakes kind of
Right.
place.
I still think that that's the way to go.
It is.
Yeah.
It is the way people. That's kind of like the heartbeat of America, man. Is a good cheeseburger and milkshakes
And fries.
and fries.
Get some
Yeah.
good fries.
So I wanted to call Old Charleston, and I had this whole concept of
Charleston.
of what I wanted to do. So then anyway, ultimately I ended up sticking with the Pita Pit concept because I'm like, you know what, this might actually create a little bit of advertisement for the store, when I do local stuff.
Right.
And it's also going to be really easy because I already have my commissary as the Pita Pit. So all my staff is trained to prep, the current ingredients that we have right now for the restaurant.
Yeah.
And so if I got a big trip coming up and I need to, do a bunch of prep work, well, I could actually just tell my manager, include this on the prep list for the food truck.
Sure.
And then the
you get
employees are already trained to do it.
Right. It's,
And then I'm not cross-contaminating anything. I'm not, there was some issues with combining the ingredients for another commissary or another, type of business with the Pita Pit. Like, they would have had a problem with it.
and you're doing it all under the same business, so you don't have to like create a new entity,
Yeah.
like have different insurance and different employees or whatever. It's all kind of under the same umbrella.
Right. I really wish I would have done it, though.
Done it separately.
Done
it
a different,
separate.
totally a burgers and fries place. Yeah.
I think the food truck. It's probably really good. I mean, it's probably really, good business if you're in it all the time. You're parking it in good locations.
The
You at
one-
the right events.
Yeah.
But if you're not out grinding, then it's not gonna make any money.
I had
Labor intensive.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice food truck. It really was. I mean, it's I built it. It was like a Doritos chip or Frito Lay's or whatever delivery truck. And
Like a bread truck kind of thing.
Yeah. It was just a box truck, and I built it completely custom. And,
Yeah, that was amazing.
And everyone
actually.
was like, "You should just get into building these trucks."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." I mean, I really enjoyed building it.
Yeah, I remember you building that. You had that. You rented out that little warehouse or something. And
Yeah, just went out.
how long
rented
did it
out
take you
the
start to
warehouse.
finish to build the truck?
Dude, I finished it in like 2.5 months.
And you had a grill in there.
2 months, maybe.
You had a grill.
And that's pretty quick for myself.
For
Never
sure.
doing it before, Yeah, I had.
You have a fryer,
Yeah, I had I think it was a 36-inch flat top grill.
freezer in there,
Yeah, there was a freezer, a cooler,
sink. The sink system or
multiple coolers. Yeah, there was the whole. It was a three bay sink.
whatever. Right.
The
Fire suppression
water
system.
heater, fire suppression system.
Had a little generator.
2 air
on it,
conditioner
right?
units, a big generator, big old
Yeah.
diesel generator, which there's an interesting story about that. So when I built it, I accounted for, it's got to ventilate, right?
Right.
And
Exhaust and
yeah, it's got exhaust and stuff. And so I had a plan. I had a gated, I had a box. But you have to keep it separate from where the employees are, right? So it's got to really be airtight against the, where you're working, right?
right.
And so I had this like steel kind of box that I had welded together and stuff, and I used that for the enclosure, and then a grated door so the exhaust would go out there. But the issue was my generator was luckily it had a overheating sensor in it, and I got the generator the night before my first event. Dude, you want to talk about
Yeah.
just like
Cutting it close.
cutting it close.
Yeah.
So I put the generator in. I'm testing it out. Mind you, I've got to leave at like 5 a.m. for this event.
Yeah, and you decided on your first one you're going to drive like 6 hours, right?
Dude, it was 6 hours away. Yeah. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, there's more too.
Yeah.
So it's 5 a.m. and or I mean about 5 or 6 when I had to leave. It's midnight. I'm putting this thing in, and I get it in. I start it, and it keeps dying on me. You know, it won't work, and I'm like, what am I going to do?
What is the generator runs the whole truck? I mean, what can you operate
Everything.
it without the generator? No.
Yeah.
Well, like the grill would work, right? That's run on gas or
No, because you need the fan.
oh, you need the fan and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. The you wouldn't be able to do that. You know, the whole thing's got to be going. I mean, you have to have the generator.
Yeah.
I mean, you could drive. Like sometimes I would drive with the generator on. Like you know, for example, I had to for the 6 hour drive because the food.
Oh, the generator had to be on the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I got the generator going. I've got the
Why not do like
truck.
dry ice or something in the coolers? It just doesn't work or.
No, I mean it would just be. There, you know, you've got a table. First of all, I got my food table. You know, where you make like all the sandwich table where you make all of your sandwiches and stuff. I mean, so the condiments are all in Cambros inside of there.
Right.
You know, and then you got to cover over that. So that's kind of like keeping that cold. There's no real practical way to do that. You know?
Sure.
I'm sure that you could figure it out if you had to, but I just never went down that path. I would just keep the generator on.
So you're en route to your first event. Generator's going. Well, you
So
got the generator
I figure
going.
it out. So I'm like, you know, I need to lift this generator up. And this, mind you, this generator is like, it probably weighs like 400 pounds, dude.
Yeah.
It's not like a light generator. So eventually what I figure out is I need some space on the bottom of the generator so I can create more airflow for the airflow to exhaust, right?
Yeah.
So I did that. So I ended up wedging it up about 2 or 3 inches, and then that worked.
That's amazing.
It just worked, you know? So I was like, okay, thanks.
Just a little bit of extra airflow.
Yeah, just a little
keep
bit
it
of
cool.
extra airflow is what ended up working it out.
Thank
So I'm
goodness.
like, okay, great, you know. So then I do. So then that works. So that and by the time I get it all fixed, it's like 3 o'clock. So here I am again. You know, 3 hours of sleep, not even
All right.
on the road, and we get down there to
It's
the
a festival.
festival, first event. Never even ran the grill at this point.
Oh,
I mean, I am like
it's risky.
dude. I'm like, I hope it all works. I hope everything
Right.
works. I have no idea if it's going
Wow.
to work. Yeah, it was a music festival, and which turned pretty wild. You know, that's something that nobody really tells you about.
I've never been to one of those music festivals, but I've heard,
This one turned
people are
wild.
going crazy.
I had a chick that was trying to climb through my window, like the serving window.
Yeah.
And she was. I mean, I was like holding her head. I'm like, please stop, ma'am.
Go back.
Ma'am, go back. Go back. It's not
Yeah.
worth it. Like,
Yeah.
just stay, you know? And she was persistent. At one point, they started
Like Woodstock.
pushing my truck on the backside. So I'm sitting there in the truck, you know, making my pitas. I'm like, what is going on? Like, so
Right.
I open up
You're
the
on the tip of
door,
it.
and as I'm, you know, to see like what's going on, and I can't open the door, and I'm like, what is going on? And I look outside, and there's a bunch of people there. And so I force it open, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you know, get off of my truck, guys. We're trying to make some food."
They're just raging.
They were just
all partying,
raging.
yeah.
They didn't. I mean, I wasn't like crazy. If I would have been like a kid about it, you know, I think they would have
But
probably
the,
made it worse.
Did the truck end up working? I mean, did it ended up working out though? That
Yeah,
for the most part,
everything
pretty
worked
good?
out for the most part.
Did
Except
you guys make
for,
any money?
Yeah, I did. I made some
That's
good
good.
money. Not every event I made money, you know, but that one I did okay. You know what really saved me on that one, which is wild, is the bottled water. Bottled water is what I mean. I went through case after case after case after case of bottled water because I was the only one selling bottled water for. I think I was still selling it for $2. Everybody else was selling it for like $7. You know, but I didn't realize. See, that's another thing I didn't. When I first got into it, I never walked. You know, because I started doing that, but I never walked and seen what the price points were, see where everybody was at.
You just come in with your
Yeah.
totally blind on your own prices.
Yeah. So I was like killing it, and I didn't know why I was killing it.
It's so much cheaper.
Yeah, I could have been at
Well, hey.
$5, and still I could have doubled it. You know,
Really?
my
Wow.
money. So, but that's something that you live and learn, I guess. I went to some events though that I've totally they had better options, than what I had to offer.
Yeah, the truck looked good though. I remember it. Maybe if you have any pictures, you could send it to me and we could post it
up
up. But
there.
it was a
Yeah.
good looking truck.
Yeah.
It's still around here somewhere. Somebody bought it. It's a different food truck now.
Yeah, it is. It's a different food truck now, but yeah, the only thing that happened at that event, I think, is or maybe it wasn't that one, but there was a point where I forgot the wax paper that you use to roll up the pitas, and so I didn't know what to do, and I mean, you can't. I didn't have time to leave and go to the store to get like wax paper. So I was just like, well, I'll just use napkins. I thought that napkins would be the answer. And so I'm rolling up these pitas with napkins, and it should be okay. But what ended up happening was when you have pitas that are kind of like they're frozen or they were just frozen, you can steam them up and make them pliable really fast,
Yeah.
To make them usable. But the issue with doing that is they become like a little soggy,
Yeah.
and
The napkin like sticks to it.
so the napkin sticks to it. But I didn't realize the napkin was sticking to it until I already sent out like 500 pizzas.
Yeah.
And then people are starting to come back and they're like, "Hey man, like your napkin is like
gross.
all my freaking pita here. I can't eat. How do you expect me to eat this?"
Yeah.
So I ran into some issues, but
That's a learning experience.
oh, it's definitely a learning experience.
And a lot of those people, I think, are just professionals. They go to all the fairs, and they've got it. Some people, you go to a food truck at a fair or whatever, and they've got it just dialed in.
Totally
Seems
dialed
like-
in. Yeah, they're looking at me laughing.
I love this guy on TikTok that I see. He's got like a food. It's not a food truck. They have like tents and stuff that they set up, but it's pretty big setup. But he always goes to other vendors, and he's like, "Hey, you guys want to trade?" And then he'll bring like a bunch of his food, and then they'll just like trade food with the other vendors, and he makes cool TikTok videos.
I would do
It
that
always
with
looks
vendors.
really good.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
That was a common thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, you didn't
trade
have to pay
food.
for the food. You just trade out the food. Yeah.
Right. Do you ever have any close calls? Whether it's like, because driving all over the place in a food truck, a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Car accidents. Or like, that thing could catch on fire at any moment.
Yeah.
It
really
especially
could've.
custom built.
Yeah.
You're cooking in there. I'm sure you clean, the hood system and everything like that, and it's
Yeah.
got the fire
but-
suppression system in there. Hopefully, it works.
Yeah, I did. I did have some close calls. Mechanically speaking, I went away to, I think it was the first trip or one of the very first ones. I went out of town, and on the way back, the accelerator, I guess there's an accelerator sensor. Yeah, I'm not very mechanical when it comes to the
Yeah, me
vehicles and
either.
stuff. So there's a accelerator sensor that limits, that kind of like shows, it works with your speed. So it correlates with your speed, and it prohibited me to go over the speed of like 40 or 35 miles an hour. So I'm going down the highway. I've got hours to go at normal speed, and I'm going like 35,
Just
40 miles
limping
an hour.
back.
Yeah, just this big ass truck just go, dude. Everybody was so mad, man,
Yeah.
and I had my
Oh, man.
emergencies on, but it didn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
they were just hating me.
Long drive.
It turned what was supposed to be like a 3-hour drive into like an 8, or whatever. I don't know.
Brutal.
It took a long time, yeah. But close calls though, nothing like where I almost like flipped the truck or I
The
almost
bridge, because I think it was pretty
yeah.
tall.
Oh yeah, it was tall. I the way that it was, I had put my, you've got a like a gray water tank they call it, which was for I use that for my 3-bay sink and stuff. So that's where your wastewater would go. So you gotta
Dump
pump
it out on
that
the road as you're going.
Well, pretty much, yeah. Well, I would dump it out, in places I probably shouldn't have, but that did happen,
Yeah.
But what would happen though is that thing would get full. I think it was like a 95-gallon wastewater tank. So
like
I had
nothing.
I had mounted it underneath. The first time I mounted it, I ended up having to change locations because the first time I had mounted it in the very back, if I went over like any grade change, to where that back end would go down. And the issue is the back end would actually go down a little bit more, even though the truck was big and it was built for weight. Well, you put 95 gallons in there and that thing's completely full, it's going to squat a little bit.
Yeah,
And I
100 gallons.
ripped off the
1,000
back.
pounds.
I ripped off the gray tank. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, I heard it and then I looked in the mirror and there it was,
Yeah.
on the ground. So I ended up having to throw it in the truck and then, going back and I repositioned it.
A lot of good lessons learned there. It just, with the whole experience. I think yeah, towards the end though, you had it dialed in pretty good. Especially doing the local events and stuff here. The truck looked good. I remember you had it at, on the square a few times.
Yeah.
You were doing those festivals in Valpo.
I did get it dialed in pretty quickly. After about a year of doing it, I really understood, what events were profitable for me and what events weren't.
What to bring with you, the proper amount of inventory to have.
Right. And then once everybody was trained on the truck too, everybody kind of knew what they were supposed to do. I got into a rhythm. And there was, once the rhythm got established and I made checklists and stuff for cleaning and prep and operations and
How important when you're running a restaurant, and especially like in terms of managing your employees and stuff as a small restaurant owner, how important is having the check? How did you do that with the checklist?
It's everything.
Every day you had a checklist for opening, a checklist for cleaning, a checklist for closing.
It's so important. And
did you create those from scratch, or was that something the franchise gave you, or kind of a mix?
Yeah, it was a mix. It was a hybrid. I mean, the franchise gave me a rough checklist, but it ultimately changed totally. By the end of when I had a real good working order checklist. And the thing about the checklist is, you could have it, you could implement it, and then half the time they're going to follow it. Right,
Yeah.
because they get to a point where they become like, okay, I know exactly what's on the checklist.
Right,
I don't need to look at the checklist.
Yeah.
But the problem is that then they start skipping things, and you're
Right,
like,
pencil whipping it.
yeah, they're pencil whipping it, and it's like, why is this not done? Why is that not done? Or
You
why
said
is
right
this...
here it's checked off, but it's not done.
Right. Yeah. So that's what it all. And it's the same in our business.
Yeah, for sure.
I
Checklist.
noticed.
How did you as far as like implementing discipline and accountability with all the staff? And you're dealing with, I mean, you're dealing with quite a bit of turnover, I would imagine.
The turnover was huge.
But you had some employees that stayed for quite a while. You had
Yeah.
kind of a core, didn't you?
I did have a core. Yeah, I had a core that.
But you would run. I mean, I remember you would run through people quite a bit. I think that's kind of the nature of the fast food business.
It is. It is the nature of the fast food business. And there was nothing. I mean, dude, there was times where I'd hire two people in the beginning of the day, and I'd let go of two people at the end of the day. It's just and not or two would quit.
Right, or just not show up.
Or just not show up for their first day. I mean, just like the wildest things would happen in the fast food. So you're constantly just hiring, and when you finally do find somebody that is going to stay, you only have a limited amount of time with them.
Yeah.
And like I would always tell to the young employees, like don't make this your forever job.
Right.
This is a stepping stone to get through whatever you're pursuing in the long run.
But they can learn skills there.
But you can learn while you're here. This will give you some good life experience. Enjoy the time that you're here. Make the best of it. Try to be the best person that you can be, and that's it.
Was that
That's all
your
you do.
target employee? Was kind of a young, like high schooler or like college age?
Not so much the high school, college. Yeah, college was the target employee. I mean, there was a lot of high schoolers that were there.
Was would you say that most of the employees, or a good chunk of them, that was their first job, or no?
Yeah, maybe 50% of them.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
It
First
is a
job.
lot. Yeah.
Never having a job.
So when I started, $7.25 was the minimum wage, right? So I paid everybody $8. Not everybody, all the just like your regular employee. I paid them at $8, and then the managers I was paying. When I say managers, the shift managers, I was paying $11, and so they were kind of like a lead shift person. And then the store manager was much more than that, you know. But I didn't have a store manager for the first, I think, 2 years. Right. I tried to implement that over time. Eventually, I did find a store manager that really worked out pretty well.
Yeah, she was good.
Yeah, she was good. She cared about the employees. She cared about the business for the most part. I think that she did a pretty good job. But so finding employees when I was paying $8. And the minimum wage was $7.25. Really wasn't that hard.
I think minimum wage is still $7.25. By the way, the federal minimum.
Is
wage.
it? Yeah.
I think
And so, which is kind of amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it hasn't went up in so long. But the biggest thing about that was COVID. Man, when COVID happened, that destroyed my labor.
Yeah.
Just destroyed it, and not in the way of, everybody left. Well, some people left, but what really happened is I couldn't get people back to work because everybody wanted more money.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, no, I'm starting at 11. So then it went from I was paying $8 to $11 on every employee.
Yeah, and at that time, everyone got like a stimulus check.
Yeah.
And they were getting some people. I think like the unemployment benefits were boosted, so they were probably a lot of people were making a lot more money not working.
Yeah.
Than if they were working.
Yeah.
So how are you going to hire employees? So many restaurants closed down during COVID. I mean, they're just like absolutely devastating for the restaurant business. I mean, yeah, I remember hearing stories about all over the country and even here that, small family restaurants that have been in a family for, a couple of generations maybe. And then the government basically just shut it down.
Yeah.
They say you're not, they literally, they did not allow restaurants to have people in their business.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them did like takeout, carry out, delivery, drive through,
yeah.
but I mean, they literally shut down. The government said you cannot go into a restaurant and eat.
How did that affect you guys?
That's amazing. In the insurance business,
Yeah.
it was a lot. It was a really uncertain time. But people continue to pay their insurance premiums. But what we did, we tried to be pretty proactive during that time. And I remember we were getting a lot of calls from customers because a lot of people have, or at least they should, but most of our customers have business income insurance, right? Like loss of business income insurance. And what that is if you have a fire in your restaurant or something, and you have a loss, a covered loss, and then you're going to be shut down for an extended period of time, your loss of income insurance will pay for, that income that you lost for that time. And that can also pay for things like a payroll and temporary expenses to, set up shop somewhere else maybe, or whatever, a lot of expenses. And our customers know that they have loss of income insurance, but we were getting a lot of calls, and it was a big discussion all throughout the industry on is, the loss of income insurance going to apply when the government shuts down the restaurant? And of course, the answer is no.
Right, because it's not a covered peril.
It's not a covered peril. There's, I never really heard of the communicable disease exclusion on an insurance policy until that time. I
never even gave it any thought, and that's exactly what it's there for.
I never gave it any thought really until then, and so we had a lot of tough conversations with customers like that. And some customers decided to turn in claims just to try it out, just to see, and they ended up getting denied. I think I don't know if anybody had insurance for that kind of a thing for COVID, but no, so nobody had insurance for COVID, unfortunately, which is devastating. But we had some restaurants go out of business for sure, real small ones. Some of our restaurant clients that have been around for a long time survived. Mm-hmm. But we were proactive with communicating with them, and we got in touch with them. And one thing that we quickly realized was that their sales are going to drop, right, and their payroll is going to drop. So we adjusted the estimates on their policies early to, their sales estimates on their general liability, or their payroll estimates on their workers' comp, and we would communicate with them, and a lot of them decided to bring those estimates down for the year.
Oh, that's huge.
To reduce their ongoing premium, monthly premiums or whatever, give them a little relief instead of having to wait until the end of the policy to do an audit to get that money back.
Yeah.
So we made a lot of adjustments like that, and we went around and we're as much as we could. We bought gift cards from our client, gift cards from our restaurant clients, and gave them out and stuff. Yeah. So we tried to help as much as we could. We had a lot of restaurants go out, but one thing that did really well that I noticed was the pizza restaurants.
Yeah,
the pizza restaurants, I think, did really well during COVID because they were just they already had the delivery system in place, and everything was like delivery, so it was a really uncertain time as far as the restaurants goes. I'm trying to think if I don't really remember anybody trying to open a restaurant during that time, like 2020, 2021, 2022. I can't I'm sure some people opened restaurants.
Well, they were because they that's kind of what really killed me the most was the competition around me. So where we had put our building was a kind of a newer developing area.
You guys were one of the first to go in that little corridor over there on Broadway.
We were, one of the first. I mean, Culver's had been there, for a long time, but I was competing against Culver's, and dude, that was pretty much it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there was really no other direct competitor.
But then Popeyes came in, Chipotle came in.
Chipotle crushed me.
Chipotle kills
They
it.
destroyed me. And then Jersey Mike's, you know,
Yeah.
there was some other small sandwich places that also tried to come in that have went out of business since then. But yeah, once everybody started moving in, it was done.
Yeah. So if you were gonna go back and do it again, do you think that you would go with a franchise again, or would
No.
you do it a totally independent operation?
I'll never do a franchise in any sort of way again,
Yeah.
ever. Yeah, if I'm going to do anything, it's going to be you got to have the freedom
Independent.
and the flexibility. And I know there's good franchises out there, like you know,
Sure.
for example, like hotel businesses. I'm sure that some of those, you know,
Or like
you're
if you
buying
could
the
get
name,
into Chick-fil-A or something like
or
that.
yeah, like a Chick-fil-A. I mean,
Interesting.
but Chick-fil-A has its limitations too. You have to
I'm
know,
sure.
you know, you're kind of owning your place within what you actually are doing with Chick-fil-A. You're partnering with Chick-fil-A
Right.
in a different way than you do with some of these other franchises.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're becoming like a key employee
Right.
that gets paid well,
Yeah.
which is fine if that's what you're looking for. But you know, when I went into it, we did a multi-unit zoning agreement where we were going to do, you know, we were basically committing to opening up 3 different pita pits in our region. You know, so we not only when you do that, that buys you a lot. Essentially, right? It buys you a secure space where there's a no compete within that territory, and because we didn't want there was no other like no compete. You know, you were kind of just going off the discretion of what the pita pit would allow to be close to your restaurant. And we're like, well, we don't want that. You know, if this thing takes off, which
Yeah, you
we're
wanna-
really hoping it to,
Yeah, you want to be able to scale it
we
up.
didn't want somebody going, yeah, we were going to scale up. We didn't want somebody just opening it up like, you know, the city next to us, you know,
Right.
even if it could sustain it. I don't want that. I want everybody to be,
Sure.
you know, going to mine. And so, you know, which ultimately we didn't end up going through with that because we started, you know, the sales, man, the sales just started dropping off. And a lot of that is due to, you know, the opening.
Yeah.
The
So,
poor management of the opening. I mean, on my behalf as well. You know.
yeah. Well, lessons learned. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, anytime you take a risk and do something new, I mean, it's never going to go as planned.
No.
Right. A lot of these people open up. We get a ton of phone calls, you know, about these small little these small little bars, right?
Yeah. All right.
And it really started a couple of years ago. I think 2 years ago they just started coming out. At least for us, they just started coming out of the woodwork, and it was because in Indiana they passed a law where if you have a liquor license, you had to have they now requires you to have a minimum of $500,000 of liquor liability insurance, and apparently that wasn't required before to have your liquor license in the state of Indiana. But now all of a sudden it was. So we were getting calls. I mean, for like the last 2 years straight, from these tiny little bars all over Podunk, Indiana, and I mean bigger areas as well.
Yeah.
To be fair, but really these tiny little small towns, and they had never had liquor liability insurance before, and now they're getting these letters from the Indiana Alcohol Tobacco Commission saying that in order to renew your license or whatever, you need to show proof of insurance. So I was really amazed to see how many never had insurance in the past.
Right.
They just didn't care, didn't want to buy it.
Yeah.
That's their prerogative, I guess. But so now it was required, and it was really, I think, a sticker shock to a lot of people. And probably the reason why they weren't purchasing it before is because liquor insurance is not cheap. It's pretty expensive, especially for a straight up bar.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a restaurant that has a lot of food sales, you know, they base it off of the percentage of your food to liquor sales, right? And if you're, you know, there's like different categories. There's like 0 to 30% liquor sales. There's 30 to 75% liquor sales, and then there's like 75% plus of your total sales. Liquor is like the most expensive category. So if you are a restaurant that has less than 30% of your gross sales as liquor, then the insurance really isn't that expensive, right? We've been doing a lot of these recently.
Very reasonable. Yeah, very reasonable at that point.
Yeah, because they, you know, these are the kinds of places that are not necessarily open till midnight. You know, they may or may not have a bar area with seating, but it's really a restaurant that has liquor. And the 30 to 60 or 30 to 70% gross sales it gets to be a little bit tougher, but a lot of insurance companies who are in the restaurant business will still kind of accept that. and you can get it for a reasonable premium. But once you get 75% gross sales and up is due to liquor, the price like skyrockets for
Like
the
500%,
it skyrockets
Yeah.
for the premium.
if not more.
Yeah, it really can.
Yeah.
It really can. And so, anyways, we're getting tons of these phone calls, and we sold a lot of liquor insurance to these small little bars. And the part of the problem is just in the marketplace for the insurance companies, there's not a lot of competition. There's only a handful of insurance companies, at least here in Indiana and Illinois, that do just liquor liability insurance, because a lot of these small owners, they have insurance on their building, all right, and they've got maybe the general liability insurance, and they might have that with a company that just won't do the liquor, right? So they need a standalone liquor insurance policy, and there's only 2 or 3 or maybe 4 insurance companies out there that do those. So once and they're all super expensive.
Yeah.
We have access to all of those companies, so we always, we check every single one, see which one we can get the best price from, and we present it to them, and that's all we can do.
Well, then
That's
what
all we
makes
can
it
do.
even tougher is a lot of these, they're small bars. They have these other generating forms of income, for
Right.
like entertainment wise, right?
Right.
Which is a great idea for business. You're bringing in business.
Yeah.
However you can bring it in, right? But so you've got like pull tabs, or
Yeah.
you've got
Darts,
pool. You've got lottery machines. You've got midget wrestling.
Yeah, well, that's
you've
an interesting case. And like the things like the darts, most of the time that's not a big deal. And these are all things that affect the premium. The insurance companies have a questionnaire essentially, right? When we're doing an application, we're sitting down with a customer that owns a bar, and we're learning about their business, right? We're asking, okay, what are your hours? Do you guys check IDs? Do you have a digital scanner?
It's a discount. If
Do
you
you do you have a bouncer at your bar? Do you have
Which is an exposure if you do.
right? Do you have a dance floor? Do you guys? How often do you guys hire a DJ or band? All these things. There's a lot of things that the insurance company wants to look at, because they're trying to, how big of a risk are you, right? Well, turns out that hosting midget wrestling events is kind of difficult. This is like an actual professional organization that does the midget wrestling. I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's really entertaining. I'd love to go see one actually in person, but they come out to your facility and they set up a ring, like a WWE style ring,
Right.
and they have performers,
Yeah.
and they come in and they do their thing, and they actually carried their own insurance.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with a guy that does this once a year, or at least he has in the past. And it caused him all kinds of issues. His insurance got canceled, and then because the insurance company realized, and a lot of people don't realize, and this is true just for all kinds of businesses, not just bars and restaurants. But when you are purchasing insurance and you're working with an agent like us, and we are going through the application process, and we submit the application and all of the information to an insurance company, and we as the agents, right, we're trying to paint our client in the best light. We're trying to paint a good picture for the insurance company of our client, right?
Yeah.
But, these are their safety controls, all these things. People don't realize that the insurance companies, their underwriters who are actually reviewing the application and pricing it, they go online. They know how to use
They
the
do
Facebook.
a lot of research and investigation on your business.
They do.
They do.
They know how to use Google. They get on there, type in your name.
There's a real person behind there that's reviewing your accounts.
It is. And so you got to be careful what you're posting on social media, what you're posting, advertising. If we say on the application that your cheapest price beer or wine is $3.50, but then you've got ads posted every day for happy hour at $1.50, bottomless mimosas, or unlimited beer or whatever, whatever you do, and then that's a problem. So
I see that 1 out of 3 liquor applications. I see them for bars. Do you do any sort of happy hours? No, I don't. Then you go online, you look at the website.
happy hour.
And there's a happy hour, and then you talk to them, and they're like, well, I'm not doing that anymore.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's not the issue.
Then
It's
take it
that
down.
You need to take it off of your website.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, are you kidding me? No, that's what, if you want this, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with an independent business owner who's like, I can do whatever I want to do. Well, it's like, no, you can't.
Well, here's another one too. How about this? We just had this come up the other day. I think when we were working on where submit an application, everything's correct on the application, but then the insurance company underwriter comes back and say, hey, what happened with this? And then he sends us a couple of articles of some local news articles of like assault, fights or whatever that happened at the bar, police.
Yeah, how did he pull that up? So they do research.
They do. So they research your restaurant online. So having a good, healthy image of your business online is huge when it comes to the liquor insurance and insurance in general. So, we love doing restaurant insurance business. We love doing the liquor insurance business.
It's fun.
It is interesting. Yeah. And, we can really bring some value to these kinds of businesses because we're very intimately familiar with the market. Mm-hmm. We know what insurance companies are looking for. What we can help advise them on these kinds of things as far as this is something that you might not have thought about before.
Right.
That can have an impact on your premium and your insurability ultimately. So
even way that some of the stuff is figured, the actual loss sustained, or
the business income insurance,
for business income insurance. I mean, there are there's other ways to do it, and so it's like what works best for that type of business. There's a difference between a bar and grill who carries inventory that has a spoilage exposure.
Right.
Then
what happens if your freezer goes down?
Then a convenience store who has all dried goods.
Right.
They can't have the same coverage.
Right.
And so the way that it's calculated is different as well.
It needs to be customizable.
Yeah.
And it is. And we, we do our best to customize it for everybody. I mean, it seems to work out.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I want to talk a little bit about shift gears a little bit, different kind of business. Back to the construction industry a little bit. When it comes to bidding, I'm trying to think of where I wanted to go with that. I'm thinking about bidding and estimating construction projects. Talking to a guy the other day, we're at this little networking event, and I had several interesting conversations there, really. They were like a supplier, it was like a material, one of the material suppliers, pretty good sized one. And tell me about all these projects that they are working on. They bid the material, the wood, the roofing material, all that kind of stuff. I mean, as far as as a small construction business, bidding on these small commercial, upper middle residential type projects, getting an accurate price for your materials, that's got to be I feel like that's got to be a huge feat. You know what I mean? When you're, what do you call it, doing the takeoff? Is that what you call it?
Yeah. So with the takeoff, though, so a nuance to that is that most of small contractors, it depends if you're talking about. Are you talking about a framing contractor? Are you talking about a subcontractor?
So if you're a general contractor,
okay.
Yeah, and you're going to bid a project. Somebody's going to remodel you do a total remodel to a 6,000 square foot building, or you're going to build a new construction, whatever. Pricing out all the material for the project, especially if it's going to be a 6-month or a 12-month project.
Yeah.
You obviously have architectural engineering and drawings and things like that. Design. This is what we want. Okay, this is what the picture. This is the blueprint. They hand you that blueprint. You got to go to how as far getting the price for. Okay, this is my total lumber cost. This is how many nails. This is my cost in nails. This is my cost in drywall. This is That's got to be to me that sounds like a monumental project. Coming up with an accurate material price. Or do you just take that and you just give it to this, Shillings or Menards or whatever, one of these places, and They bid the material for you. How does that work exactly?
No, it's a cross check is what it is. So if we're doing acting as a general contractor on a project, what's so nice about having a strong framing background is the way that I complete my material estimates is when I do a bid on the framing labor portion, I'm going through and actually building this building with manpower in my mind. So day one, we arrive on site, slab on grade, construction. What are we doing? Well, we're snapping out. We're doing our layout. This is going to take so many days. This is the materials. I need to have chalk. I need to have chalk lines. I need to have, polyurethane to spray the lines. Is it in the wintertime when we need to have shovels? We need to have, snow blowers or brooms, like shovels. So these are all things that I'm thinking in my mind as I'm building this project, and I'm writing all this down. These are the tools we need. These are the materials that we need. When you're putting up walls, well, you can't, even if it's a panelized product. Okay, well, walls are no good without braces. Go ahead and stand a wall up and see what happens after you nail it down to the floor. It's going to fall over still, probably.
Right.
If it's a little windy, you need braces, right? And braces are just part of the process. So all these things get added together. And so as far as the estimate goes on the material, if I don't know how to build that building,
Right.
I'm not a very good builder, in my opinion. I mean, and there's a lot of people that don't know how to build that still do great estimating, and it's just they've learned a different way to do it.
Yeah.
The way that I do it is I have to build it in my mind, and as I'm building it, and I catch things missing all the time, or sometimes a lot of times the estimator from the lumber company, they catch things. They're like, well, I'm thinking I didn't think about that.
Right.
That they thought about it, which is great. So that's why I said it's a cross check. So I'm looking to make sure that everything's there. That when I'm putting up walls, like there's so many small things that you can forget that are so important, like a seal sealer. For the bottom of your wall. It's
Like
it's an air vapor. Yeah, it's a little foam thing that you put down on the exterior walls. Well, if you don't have that, you could and you go ahead and set up all of your exterior walls, they could call you on that. It's such a small little detail that you can't show up to the site and not have seal sealer on there. And if the lumber manufacturer missed it and me as the builder, I missed it, well, that's on me as the builder, not the lumber. So you have to know what you're building and how to build it. Otherwise, and then you're looking at two things. You're looking at the span. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an architect. But I'm supposed to know, as a builder, I'm supposed to know my spans. I'm supposed to know how to look up, on the charts. I need to be able to know, hey, this LVL is only good to span 20 feet.
Right.
This needs doubled up. This is going to have, I'm supposed to know these things to an extent. And I could always go to the engineer or the architect, and say, hey, I'm worried about this.
Right.
Does this meet, the span requirements, And so as a builder, these are things that I should be able to pick up on, right away. And so as far as the risk, though, goes of missing stuff, it happens.
How do you handle that? And then, if we just found a $20,000.
That's a big one. I mean, that is a huge one,
Yeah, especially for like a small residential project. Yeah, that's probably ridiculous.
But that's possible, It's like, oh well,
sorry,
you didn't think about the
is.
air conditioner units. I don't know,
Yeah.
But a lot of it does. You have to review each bid.
I would think that
line item by line item.
I would think that those kinds of things that would blow a hole in the budget or whatever, totally unexpected is the more so in remodel, obviously, than in new construction. I feel like it'd probably be a little bit easier to price something out as a new construction because you're starting from a clean slate. Everything's going to be brand new.
You're not running anything rotted.
Right. When you do remodels, you might get into the project and then all of a sudden, oh, this was unexpected that we've got to replace this, or, we took off all the shingles, but we now have to do all the decking on the roof, or something like that, or it was rotted. So that's,
Well, it does happen. Even with your guys' project, for example, I believe it was the storm drain or the sewer connection. the grade was unknown at the time of the bid of where we thought we were going to be able to tie into, for a gravity feed situation.
Right.
And we'll come to find out where they needed to connect was in a different location because of the grade, So that
More excavating,
include more
all
excavating, more materials, and now I mean that's not our fault as the builder. That's not your fault as the owner. That's
Just
not
unknown.
the excavator's fault for not knowing. It's just an unknown. So you got to pay
Yeah, exactly.
in some situations,
Sure,
right? But in other situations, where it never really falls on the subcontractor. Especially, it's typical for them for certain subcontractors to exclude materials. A lot of them do include it, but a lot of them exclude it.
Right.
It's just like in the insurance realm where, we have exclusions all
Sure.
over the place for losses.
Right.
That covers the profitability for the insurance company.
Right, well,
Because
they-
you can't insure it.
Right.
That's the issue because it's
Exactly.
an unknown.
Right.
So who does it fall on?
Or
the
there's
owner.
Yeah,
You
right.
know?
And there's so there might be unlimited exposure out there, right?
Right.
The insurance company can't handle like COVID. If a lot of these insurance companies covered the loss of income for all these businesses, they would have that would have tanked the market. I mean,
been
there's no
done,
way
yeah, it
they
would've went out
can't
of
handle
business.
it.
Yeah.
Take something like the government to come in and do that.
Yeah.
So then, and they did with like the Paycheck Protection Program, right? That was kind of like a form of business income insurance for a lot of businesses in a way.
And that's kind of,
Yeah.
you have that right as the owner in some of those situations where some of those
Yeah.
unknowns, the responsibility falls on the original developer. And it's like, well, you messed this up as the original developer. You sized the sewer wrong, or the city allowed you to put this in,
Right.
at a wrong size. And then they approved us for this amount of occupancy, you know what I'm saying? Or occupancy, or you know what I'm saying? Like, so sometimes it falls on the city, and that's why
Right.
they're so diligent, and they do a really good job about it, in my opinion, at our city, of maintaining record and making sure that everyone is in compliance to the plan,
Right.
and that kind of that steers everybody in the right direction. So I guess
good.
to answer your question,
Yeah,
it usually falls on the owner.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the ones building the project, wanting to get it done.
Right.
Everyone's there to make money. I forget where I was going with. I forget where I was originally going with that construction estimating
You're asking about materials,
costs. Yeah, pricing out a project.
who the responsibility lands on if there's
Yeah.
a missed component or missed materials.
Right.
Yeah. And it really depends on the way the contract is set and in place. If you as a GC have a labor and material or cost plus, so the cost of the project, whatever the total cost of the project is, plus a percentage or plus a dollar amount, that's on you. That's on you. I mean,
Yeah. We see a lot of so many people are starting, want to be a general contractor, right? Everybody out there wants to be a general contractor. They
Yeah.
want to be a paper contractor. They want to
yeah,
basically do sales and some management,
Yeah.
and then hire out subcontractors to do all the work. And it kind of sounds sexy, and it sounds like great. And I'm sure it is a great gig once you, and it is. It's a great business once you are established and if you're making money and you know what you're doing. But we see a ton of them that people get into it and they really don't have much experience at all with the actual trades. They're maybe salespeople, but they don't.
Yeah.
They're not carpenters, or they're not.
even carpenters.
They're not-
I see
they're not-
either seasoned carpenters usually make good general contractors,
Yeah.
but most of the time it's architects and engineers that go into general contracting.
Yeah,
They typically, because they can do a unique thing of being able to change the plans,
right.
or engineers can spec things like right away.
Right.
You just need it and they've got it. They've got the stamp and they'll approve it. A carpenter can't do that, and so those are the ones I usually see them that are the most successful, or the architects and the engineers that go into general contracting.
Yeah, and a lot of it seems like some of the more pretty good established general contracting businesses out there, they kind of have architectural engineering in-house.
Yeah.
And they'll have maybe even framers, roofers,
Yeah.
HVAC, electrical on staff, plumbing on staff,
Yeah.
but they sub a lot of stuff out too. And I think it seems like a lot of general contractors keep the concrete in house for some reason. The concrete and trucking and equipment excavating a little bit. It seems like that seems to be a natural to have in house for some reason. I've noticed that
I've noticed a lot of it with framing.
framing in
They
house.
keep a lot of the in-house with the framing. So when you have a big enough, framing, you can have framing and concrete kind of in the same, the ballpark.
Yeah.
They're both carpenters.
Right.
Concrete are they're carpenters.
Are they part of the is there a separate union for concrete, or are they part of the carpenters union?
No, they're part of the carpenters union.
Or is it?
Yeah. Yep. They're part of the carpenters union. Now I believe they're a different. They might be on a different scale. Like if you're a finisher, or like a floor installation, for example, that's
Yeah.
still carpentry, but it's floor installers. So I don't know. I don't know the details of the union, the way
Right.
the union classifies it, but
Yeah, I had a point that I was going to make with the whole estimating thing, contract, but I can't remember. One thing I was going to mention though is when it comes to having it, insurance claims. One thing that we kind of battle with sometimes, and there is a need for it, but is public adjusters, and you see this a lot with they're kind of like general contractors, but they're public adjusters, but they're also kind of like roofers or whatever. And you see people, they'll go door knocking, they're storm chasing,
Yeah.
which I don't as far if I was a roofing contractor or any, in that kind of business doing especially like residential remodeling and fixing up, I mean, storm chasing seems to be kind of like a
Extremely profitable.
smart thing to do, right? So I don't blame anybody for storm chasing.
Yeah.
And it's needed. If you have a major storm and 10,000 roofs in an area get hail damage, you would think that the local contractors there probably not going to be able to handle it all. Or if they do, if you didn't have storm chasers come in and all you had was your regular pool of local contractors, the prices are probably going to be really inflated, right? Because you have so much demand for the limited amounts of businesses there. So I think when you have outside storm chasers or outside businesses come in, that probably helps stabilize a market a little bit in like almost an emergency situation.
Yeah.
When there is all of a sudden there's 10,000 roofs that need to be fixed. But it's particular to public adjusters though. You have to be really careful with public adjusters because there's a need for a public adjuster, but in my opinion, it seems like more often than not, when a public adjuster is involved on a residential property damage claim, it is a negative experience for the policyholder at the end of the day, a lot of the time. And it's because there's several reasons why, but they inflate the cost of the claim significantly. Because when you hire a public adjuster, they're supposed to, you basically sign over some of your rights to the insurance policy to the public adjuster, and they're now your representative, and you can't even communicate with your own insurance company anymore. Your insurance company will not talk to you anymore after you've secured a public adjuster. They will only talk to your public adjuster, like legally. They
Really?
can't.
Yeah.
Right. You have signed over your right to negotiate and settle the claim to that adjuster.
Yeah.
And that frustrates a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand that initially getting into that contract.
Right.
And once the PA has that situation, they want to get as big of a payout from the insurance company as they can, right? Because they are getting a percentage. They're going to take 30, 40, 50% of the payout from the insurance company.
Yeah.
And okay, you get a new roof and everything like that. That's great. And which, hopefully that would have happened without having to get a public adjuster in the first place if you had a legitimate claim. Of course, the question is always, is it a legitimate claim initially? And if you have a legitimate claim, then there really shouldn't be a need for a public adjuster because your insurance company is going to deal directly with you. They want to settle that claim as quickly as you do.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a dispute, and you think that you actually have a legitimate claim, but the company, if the insurance company is trying to screw you, then yeah, I would get a public adjuster as well. I understand that, but the problem with the public adjusters, right, is they want to inflate the claim, and we'll sometimes like we've had situations where somebody's got damage to their roof, right? So somebody knocked on their door, and they say, hey, you might have damage on your roof. Do you want us to give you a free inspection or something? And they say, yeah. And of course they come back down. Oh, yep, you got hail damage. We can help you with this. Here, sign this paperwork here, and they'll sign it right there on the spot. They'll have you sign it.
Right.
And they don't necessarily, the homeowner doesn't necessarily totally understand the contract. And then all of a sudden, they're dealing with your insurance company directly, and now you've got a new roof, but they're going to throw in the gutters, the downspouts, the siding. Right. Your sunroom in the back is damaged. Your deck, they're trying to, your shed over here is damaged. They're trying to put it all in there. They want it all.
Right. Because they're getting paid premium dollars at this point.
Oh yeah. And the homeowner is like, whoa! I just, I thought I had hail damage on my roof. Why are they ripping out putting on new siding, doing all this? This is going to be a huge insurance claim, and they're going to be wrecked after this.
Yeah, it is.
They're going to be wrecked.
And why are they going to be wrecked?
Because it's going to inhibit their ability to secure insurance in the future, because they're probably going to get canceled, or their premium's going to go way up because they had a nasty claim. And it might hurt their insurability. I don't know. For that particular reason, their premiums are going to be up significantly. They may even have a hard time getting insurance,
which is going to put them with a
non-standard company.
And it's going to make it super expensive.
They're going to have less coverage because they're going to be with a not as high quality of an insurance company some of the time.
And that's kind of worst case scenario.
That's worst case scenario. It doesn't always happen,
but it does.
But my suggestion to people is always, if you have hail damage or you have damage to your house, file the insurance claim with your company and deal with your claims adjuster that the insurance company assigns first. Yeah. Deal with them and see if you can work that. Sometimes
first, because you can always go the other option
if you have a dispute.
If you feel like there's a dispute needed, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing to tell people.
I agree.
Is that they do have other options, but see first why, and to explain what you did. I mean, like take a short clip of this conversation and give it to them before.
Exactly.
I think it would be worthwhile.
And if you have a dispute, then hire a public adjuster if necessary.
Yeah.
I think there are real professional public adjusters out there, and especially when you're dealing with like large commercial and industrial type claims and engineering and appraisals and there's so many things that are going to be involved in that. Or
we were kind of talking. I want to kind of just hit point real quick of guaranteed home replacement coverage. I think what I'd like to discuss is when does that become a value, right? Because you're thinking, okay, well, my home, let's say we did a replacement cost estimation on my home and it's $500,000 to replace my home. Why do I need any coverage beyond that? And so I think what you said earlier, a good response to that question is, well, let's say that you had a home, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, all those homes burned down.
Fire.
Right? So then all these storm chaser type people and contractors come in the area because they know they're going to get paid a premium amount. So if you don't have that guaranteed home replacement coverage or cost coverage, now the increased cost that it's going to be because of all these contractors coming in, and their rates now went from what the standard rebuild would be to now plus 50% or plus 100% or more. And
not even, it's a really good point, not even just the contractors, but it's all a function of supply and demand, right, in the marketplace. And when you have a huge demand for rebuilding in a local area, that's also going to impact the material prices. It's going to maybe take longer because now the local municipality has... How many permits are they trying to get out? All these things are gonna the increased cost. Now, like if it was an isolated situation where one house burnt down in a community, then that's not gonna be enough to change the market in the area, right? But if 500 homes burn,
a full subdivision because it was 80-mile-an-hour winds that day.
That has an impact on the actual local market.
Yes.
The construction market and everything. So there is endorsements that you can have on your insurance policy to protect against that risk, right? Whether it's an increased cost endorsement where we say, hey, under normal circumstances, we think that your home is going to cost $700,000 to rebuild. And we come up with that with a detailed estimation, goes back to your construction experience, or, we have the software systems to try to do that. And then we can add on that endorsement to your policy and say, just in case, here's an additional 25% if a situation like this happens in the market, or an additional 50%. Or really the best way to do it, and especially if you're in a nice home, you have a high value home, or a real custom home, is you can have the best form of protection would be the guaranteed home replacement cost endorsement, where the insurance company is guaranteeing the cost of replacement of your home. And it's set up just like a normal insurance policy. We say, hey, under the normal circumstances, we think it's going to cost $700,000. The insurance company is going to charge you premium on that $700,000, and then we're going to add that guaranteed home replacement cost endorsement, which is they're going to charge you some premium to have that endorsement.
Right.
But then you essentially have unlimited coverage on your policy, unlimited insurance, and that's the best form of protection.
In some of these markets, these carriers like Chubb, for example,
Right.
with that endorsement as well, they provide an escalation ticket essentially for your for the insured. So when I say that, what that means is that they provide, they'll actually provide contractors or reference contractors that are available. So like, let's say you're like, no one, something happened bad and I can't even find a contractor to do this. They'll actually assist in getting contractors, referring
absolutely.
contractors. They'll assist in the extra expenses occurred to bring a contractor from Indiana down to Gatlinburg, Tennessee to help.
Right.
they'll
And Chubb
pay
in
for that.
particular. Chubb in particular is one of our best markets for real high value homes, and Chubb is on the more expensive side when it comes to the premiums.
Yeah.
A little bit, but
Right.
but they're a luxury provider essentially. They have some of the best policies out there that you can buy for home insurance. All the way
Cadillac.
It's the Cadillac. It
yeah.
really is. We if you have a $500,000 or $600,000 home, you're not going to be necessarily a great fit for Chubb. But if you have a $2 million home, if you have a $5 million home, that $2 to $5 million home value seems to be a really good sweet spot for Chubb.
Right.
And they, as far as like the materials, they will source. We were talking to them the other day. They were talking about how they had to source some type of stone or something from, it had to come in internationally because they actually will restore your situation, restore you back to, where you were. A lot of people have really custom homes and you can't get certain kinds of material. And, your typical insurance company isn't going to go the extra mile as far as like importing certain kind of stone that you had before,
or exotic woods.
Right.
I mean, it stuff's real and it happens, and it's I've built homes where we've brought in, shipped in exotic stuff, and when you're dealing with $1 million plus home, or even more, $5 million, $10 million homes. Sometimes these people don't care. They want to be able to go up to the wood, smell that wood, and be like, you know what that is? That's the African Bam Bam, what came from the Amazonian forest.
Right.
It was harvested, 3,000 years ago from,
and especially in a situation where you've got, big shot, big deep pockets. He came in and he bought that home.
Right.
That somebody else built.
Yeah.
Right. So he bought that home, doesn't necessarily know, how involved it was to get that kind of material,
Yeah.
the process. But if he has a loss, a fire or whatever, and he wants it built the same way it was before, because he paid for his insurance company to do that. Well, there's, when you're talking about real custom material like that, that's an issue.
Yeah.
It's going to be an issue. And when you better hope that you have a really good insurance company like Chubb, or like Auto Owners.
You better hope you do, because it'll never be what it was.
Yeah. I really like that's one of my favorite things to do is do home insurance on really nice custom homes.
Yeah.
Especially you get the opportunity, like the best way to do it is to go out there to the home. We like to go out there, take pictures. We'll fly up our drone, take pictures of the home, really go around and see what, your custom bars, what kind of flooring is throughout, what kind of, siding and all this kind of custom materials. And then really kind of come up with a good estimate it's fun. I enjoy
Yeah,
it.
because
you like
you've
the
got your hands
architecture.
on an artisan, just beautiful piece. You know,
Right.
you're actually you're involved in something that that's it has high value.
custom, it's
You know, it's
unique,
custom,
too.
it's unique. Yeah, it makes it a
Yeah.
little bit more fun, I think.
Yeah, that's fun. That's a good point. Really good point. I don't know. What do you got going on today? What's on the agenda the rest of the day after this? It's Sunday morning. We're here, everybody. Sunday morning at 10 o'clock.
I'm gonna head over to the other office and build faux beams.
Tell me a little bit about this beam situation.
Okay.
So I know, and we could show a picture of your finished beams
Yeah.
on here, but so you are building beam, like they're not actual beams, right? They're just like veneer
Yeah, they're
beams essentially.
they call them box beams. Yeah. So
Where did you get the? Where did you originally get the because you've been doing them for a little while.
Yeah.
How did you come up with them originally? Is it just kind of the just trend you saw, trendy kind of?
No, what happened was I wanted to buy some beams, or a customer I think maybe wanted to have some beams put in his house, and
And you're like, okay, I'm just gonna try to figure out how to make it myself.
well,
'Cause they're
yeah. Once I
expensive to
looked
buy.
up the price of them, so there's two ways to do it. You can actually put in real beams, or you could put in the faux beams. I think there's a time and place for both, to do both. But the box beams, you can is significantly
Walk us through
Less
briefly.
expense.
Briefly walk us through the process on building.
the building.
beam.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, there's so let's the beams that I'm building, like right now, it's just it's a pine product, and the reason why I'm using pine is because it's a soft wood, and which means that you can shape the wood a lot easier than a hardwood, right? So you can build, you can really do like white oak beams. You can do, it just depends on the look that they're looking for. But if they're going for this hand hewn rustic look, which is what a lot of people want to do, I don't know if you can see it in our photo, but that's actually the hand
Oh, yeah.
hewn right there. And so what makes it hand
Is this
hewn?
a real beam?
This one?
Yeah.
This is a real beam.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what makes it look like this? So see the chop marks.
Right.
So that's basically what happened is when they're standing on top of a log, a hewing process, right, is where they shape the beam into a square, or flat sides, right?
Yeah.
And so you're taking your axe and you're going like this with your axe, and so it creates those check marks in there.
Right.
And then so what I do though, so I take pine, I build 3-sided beam, and then I go through there. I have a planer that has an undulating bit on it, and what that does, that's a barrel shaped bit on a planer, and so I go through there and I plunge it into the pine, which creates these uneven texture
Right.
to it, like
Gives
this.
it kind of an old look.
Yeah, it kind of gives it that
Or used.
form.
Yeah.
It gives it the form. And then I go through there, with the axe, and I kind of make my marks, the hewing kind of marks there. And then I go through there with a wire brush, and I the wire brush is what gives it that the like the grain. It defines the grains. It gives it a rougher
Yeah,
texture.
puts the little grooves in it all
Yeah,
throughout.
little
yeah.
grooves, and then I take a grinder with a grinder wheel, and I go through there and make split marks to simulate the splitting of the beams. And so that kind of tapers. Dude, it's a
Yeah,
process.
that's a major process, yeah.
And then you go through there and you make little. I take an owl, it's called, just like it's got a handle on it, long pointy end. And I go through
Yeah.
there and I put all these little impressions into the wood, which simulates termites, essentially. And then you have the option to torch the beam. If you torch
Yeah.
the beam, it creates. If you stain it after you torch it, it creates a.
Oh, you stain it after you torch it?
Yeah, because if you're
If
gonna,
you just torch it,
you can just torch
I'd
it
say
and then
I've-
clear coat it.
I see that kind of is popular sometimes, but I think when it's only torched, it almost looks like too fake. A little bit,
sometimes it
doesn't
can. Yeah, sometimes
If
it
it's not done
can. Yeah, if it's not done right. I mean, the torching. I don't know. If it's really a needed step. Because you could just stain over it and it's just fine. But when you do torch it, it does create like a little bit of imperfection in the stain, right? So if you stain over a torched area, it might be a little bit darker in that area, which
Yeah.
which only exasperates the rustic look,
Right.
right? And so that's kind of what you're going for. So that's the process,
Long process.
It is a long process. but I've built quite a few of them. You know, they turn out really nice.
What do you charge somebody if they want you to do beams like? I mean, obviously it depends on what they want,
Yeah,
how
depending on
long,
the
but
location of where they're going. You know,
yeah,
I have pricing points depending on. I
yeah,
mean, really just depends on what they want. It depends
yeah,
on the length of the beam. You know, the
yeah.
size of the beam. I mean, there's.
You probably won't do it. I mean, I would imagine you're probably going to charge somebody quite a bit to do that. To do that, I mean,
I mean, they're more reasonable than what you think. You could
yeah,
get, you know, two beams in a house can add, in one room can add tons of character.
it does. It
And
really does.
for, I mean, that could cost $1,000. You know,
Right.
and that adds so much to your room.
Yeah.
You know, so it just depends on really what you're looking for.
That's cool. Well, sounds like fun.
Fun.
One more thing I want to talk about. One more thing, totally off topic. Just did a life insurance policy for a guy.
Yeah.
Guy's in his late 40s. Little overweight. Pretty good health. Did did a $250,000 term. And he's got some kids and they're older. They have a little bit of household debt, but pretty good. And he's a small business owner. $250,000 policy, just a term. You know, all I really do is term insurance, life insurance. I don't do these exotic, fancy. Sorry, I don't do these real fancy, exotic life insurance policies. These universal life policies, or occasionally you do like a whole life policy or something like that. But I really just like selling term insurance. And this guy, we did $250,000 for a 20-year term. We submitted the application at standard rating, so he was going to pay, so it was like $800 a year for the coverage or something like that. But due to a couple things in his medical history, he's a little bit overweight. They did it like 1.25% standard, so he ended up paying, you know, it's like $1,100 a year or something, $250,000 term. We hear about the affordability crisis all the time, right? Cost of living is so expensive. Families are struggling out there. They really are. And then if you have a devastating situation, you know, especially for a young family, you know what I mean? Life insurance can really take off a huge burden on somebody, you know, in the event of a disaster situation. And I don't think people realize. Maybe they do, because a lot of people are trying to sell life insurance, right? And we're not really in the business of selling a ton of life insurance, but we do every once in a while, because it can be really affordable to get good coverage. You can get $1 million policy. You can get a $500,000 policy for not all that expensive, and the protection that would provide for your family, especially if you are the breadwinner in the family, right? And you have, you know, young kids. It's so necessary for people out there to have life insurance adequate to their needs. I mean, when you think about, if I'm a breadwinner in a family and I've got kids and young kids especially, but if I'm thinking about, you know, my kids, being able to put my kids through school, you know, want to pay for a daughter's wedding, you know, at least. You know, and then you've got debt, things like that, whether it's mortgage, cars, credit cards, student loans, all those kinds of things. You've got the expenses of just a funeral and things like that. I mean, it's expensive to put on a funeral, especially if you got a lot of family, friends, everything. It's expensive. $10,000, $20,000, $30,000
when people do die young.
Yeah.
You know, when
Young.
they die young, it's going to be a more expensive funeral.
Yeah, it's gonna be expensive. I mean, it's just for the family. Yeah. It is. I don't know. It is. And then you have a spouse. After all the dust settles and a couple weeks, the funeral happens, and then all of a sudden you have a spouse that has young kids, and they've got to figure out how to survive.
Yeah.
So I tell people, I mean, a minimum of 3 to 5 years of living expenses.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
As much as you can get.
And that's even 3 to 5 years. So your kid's 5 years old, now he's 10 years old. Nothing's changed.
Right.
Nothing's going to change. I'm not saying that always is the case, but unless all of a sudden, you know, for you to actually make a huge income difference in 5 years as a single supporting, person,
Right.
I couldn't imagine it.
Oh, it'd be
5 years
super.
just isn't
Yeah.
going to be enough to cover it out,
No, it's not.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of times I hear people saying, whatever there's so many different ways to calculate how much you need,
Right.
but it really goes depending on how much you want to be able to afford. How long do you want to stretch that out for your family?
Yeah.
That's really all it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah, it
You
is.
know, and then there's the business side of it too, which
Yeah.
ultimately life insurance isn't a lottery ticket. It can't be used as a lottery ticket.
No.
It's an income replacement.
Right. That's how we were just talking
Insurance.
about this the other day, right? I mean, so many people out there want to sell you life insurance, all these different fancy products, and it's complex. It's complex. It really is. It can be life insurance can be so complex, but at the same time, it can also be so simple.
It can be.
I mean,
It should be.
the products, at least the ones that we sell,
For the ones that we sell, it should
are
be.
so
Yeah.
simple.
Right.
Hey, you buy the policy. This is the premium every year. It's never going to change. You can buy it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40-year terms, and this is the limit of insurance. If you die in this time period, this is what your beneficiary gets.
Right.
That's it. Simple. Very simple. And that's the cheap term insurance is the cheapest form of life insurance out there.
And there is, so you go 30 years, right? The idea, or 40 years. Well, if you're 20 years old, you do a 40-year term. You're 60 years old. You're right at retirement. Well, when you retire, the hope is that you have put money in other nest eggs that are going to support the income replacement.
Yeah, and
Right?
you don't probably when you're 60 years old, you're at that point in your life, hopefully you've paid off your mortgage, you've paid off
Yeah.
all your debt. Hopefully by that
Hopefully,
time,
yeah.
not everybody has, but hopefully,
No.
but at least you're on your way. But you've built maybe you have a 401k, or maybe you have some investment properties or some stocks or whatever, or you've just saved. Your kids are probably older, doing their own thing, so you don't have as much of a need. But when you're in your early 20s or or in your 30s or 40s and you have a family and those are you're in your breadwinning years at that point, if something of a disaster happens, that's where that is the time where you actually need to have that insurance in place.
Yeah. And this, kind of the same goes for, like key person. So if you go look at life insurance for business purposes, right?
Right.
The key person coverage, what that does exactly, if you have a key person that you have a that the company has a life insurance policy on,
Somebody in that business that is relied upon.
that was relied upon.
Yeah, they are a significant portion of that business, whatever their expertise or their experience or whatever, right?
Right, and that person was, to pass, then the
Business is at a loss,
the
right?
business is at a huge loss.
Right.
Yeah, and that life insurance is going to cover the expenses incurred, which could be very significant.
Yeah,
You know,
so
it
you
just
gotta find a
depends on
replacement,
to
right?
find the replacement. It's not just what it's going to be to post an ad.
Right.
You know,
No,
you've
hire
lost
them.
this guy, that
Train
or this
them.
girl, whatever that you have, that is generating some serious income. So I think that there's
Huge. And then also with that is partnerships, right? Buy sell agreements. I mean, this is one that we do a few of these a year at least. It seems like where people friends get in business together, business partners
Right.
get in business together, and you see it, you hear about it all the time, especially with partners, and then some partner passes away, and then you have kind of next of kin who's kind of assuming the ownership, and there's all these, it gets really complex, and sometimes you don't agree with people, and you want to split, and all these kinds of things, and you can, you have these buy-sell agreements, or at least hopefully, if you have a partnership with somebody, you have a buy-sell agreement in place. How are we going to exit the business, or
Right.
if somebody dies, what's going to happen, or if we want to, if I want to sell but you don't, what's going to happen? Mainly if you die, though, the buy-sell agreement, what's going to happen is a lot of times we have a partnership, we're 50-50 owners or whatever, and we have a successful business. And the business might make, good money, and it's probably worth, let's say the business is worth several million dollars. And one of the partners passes away. well, if I'm the remaining business owner, I'm the surviving business owner. I might not want to do business with so and so's spouse.
Yeah.
Or they might not want to do business with me. They might not want to have anything to do with the business. They don't want to run the business. They can't run the business or incapable or whatever. Well, it's also possible that in that situation, we're like, okay, what do we do here? Because I'm going to continue to run the business, all of it now, but I have a 50-50 partner over here. And so how are we going to work this situation out? I mean, and the problem is if I don't have enough cash on hand, or I don't have the ability to purchase, to buy you out at that point.
Right. It becomes a big problem.
And it could be a major strain on the business if we have to put a ton of
off
capital into that,
over,
and then
right.
So that's where having a funded buy sell, funding a buy sell agreement with a life insurance policy can save a business.
Yeah.
It really can.
Yeah,
And it's life insurance, again, it's not that expensive. Especially if you're in pretty good health.
Yeah.
Anyways, wanted to just touch base on that. Well, adios, amigos.
Say la vis.